Well, welcome. Uh, and we are beginning the letter to Philadelphia today, which is in chapter 3, and it begins at verse 7. Philadelphia is one of two churches that Jesus has nothing but praise for. So I think that this was probably written more to us than the church in Philadelphia, right? Yeah. At any rate, I have handed out the background information for the church. I'm just going to go through and hit some highlights, and you can read it more carefully when you get home. The church at the city of Philadelphia here was named after, oh boy, who was that? It was Attalus. And Attalus actually really loved his brother. And they took that name because he was a guy who loved his brother. And as you all know, Philadelphia means one who loves his brother. And so oftentimes we call the city, I guess that's kind of north of us, right? Philadelphia is north of us. The city of brotherly love. That's where it comes from. It is the newest of the towns of these 7 letters. So all of them had longer histories than this particular place. It was not established for military reasons, and it wasn't even established for trade reasons. It was a rich agricultural area, and it did have good trade, but that wasn't really why it was settled. It was settled to be a missionary town, and the mission was to spread Greek culture. So being a city with outreach on its mind sort of comes naturally to these people. That's what you do if you come from Philadelphia. You spread the word. The earthquakes that destroyed places like Sardis also hit this place, but there was a big difference. They rebuilt. You remember they weren't too energetic about that. And yet they had earthquake after earthquake. So people actually began to live outside the city so that they wouldn't be caught in an earthquake. And they would go into the city for work, but if there was ever any rumble or tumble or something like that, boy, they were beating feet fast to get out. So there is some who feel that the idea in the letter, okay, let's just stop for a minute and read the letter so that when I refer to the letter in this introductory notes, we'll know what we're referring to. So I'll read verse 7 and I think we went left last time. So Greg, you can read verse 8 and Carla 9 and that way, just to kind of switch things up, okay? And to the messenger of the church in Philadelphia write, the one who is holy, the one who is genuine, the one who has the key of David, who opens a door and no one will shut it, who shuts a door and no one opens it, says these things.
I know what you are doing. See, I have opened a door before you that no one can shut, that you have only a little strength. And I have kept my word, and I have not denied my name.
Look, I will make those of Satan's synagogue who say that they are Jews, yet are not, but are lying. Look, I will make them come and bow down at your feet and realize that I have loved you.
Because you have kept my word of patience, I also will keep you safe at the time of testing, which is coming upon the whole world, to test those living on the earth.
I am coming soon. Cling to what you have so that no one takes your crown.
The one who wins the victory, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he will never leave it again. And I will write on him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of the heaven from my God, and my new name.
Let the one who has an ear listen to what the Spirit says to the churches.
Okay, now, you notice that phrase in here that, where was it? About, let's see. Look, I will make, no, not that one. Okay, now I can't find it, but well, just in general, you notice a lot of these sort of permanent sounding things, but you think of those earthquakes and everybody having to skedaddle out of town because they're looking for falling rocks, to quote something I saw all the time when I lived out in California, watch for falling rocks. So here they are in the heaven. They don't have to worry about being kicked out anymore.
And here I will make him a pillar in the temple of my
That is an interesting thing, and it relates possibly, to another thing about this city. If a person did well, good public servant, like if it was in America, it'd be a good president or a good senator or a good mayor or something like that. Or, they served long and faithfully in the military and acquitted themselves well. Anyways, they became sort of a local hero, shall we say. You know how we make so-and-so Memorial Bridge or so-and-so Memorial Highway? Well, what they would do is they would put up a new pillar in one of the temples, and they would chisel the guy's name in the pillar in the temple. So there are a lot of commentators that see this connection in the letter, and they feel like he's indicating that as a background, that the people would relate well because of that. Let's see here. Okay, here's a quote here talking about the other thing that I mentioned before that. In their fear, the people of Philadelphia were always going out and coming in. They were always fleeing from the city and then returning to it. This may be reflected in the "he will never leave it again" of Revelation 3:12. See? You go into heaven, you're never going to leave. There's not going to be a disaster, something like that will make you want to run out of the city. And these people were well aware of troubles that might make you want to run out of the city. Let's see here. What else about this place? I already said that it was the newest of the cities. They were very religious. They had all sorts of temples. They had your standard mix of people. That would include Jews. It would include Greeks/Romans. It would include native population. The percentages I could not find, so there apparently is no, at least I couldn't find any estimation of what it was. But as we just read the letter and we saw that the phrase "synagogue of Satan," now obviously there was no building with a sign over it that said "Synagogue of Satan." This should let all those people who think that the book of Revelation is literal stop and think for a minute. Did some Jews actually put a sign over their synagogue and say "Synagogue of Satan"? I don't think so. So clearly the book is symbolic, but it does also indicate that there were Jews there, as there were in all of these places. The church comes off obviously very good because it doesn't get any criticism at all. And it doesn't seem to be a powerful church. It doesn't have a lot of movers and shakers. In certain parts of Christendom, right there in the first century, you had people who were associated with the high and mighty. People who maybe they were just servants in so-and-so's household, or maybe they were a wife. You know, you think about Lydia. I mean, she was a woman of means. Okay, she didn't come from this town, you know, but she was a woman of means. Well, they don't seem to have people of means. They don't seem to have anybody from the household of the mayor or wives of important people. They're kind of a weak church from a human point of view. But obviously, from a spiritual point of view, they're very strong. The city was built on a gradual slope. While not intended to be a fortified city, because Pergamum was the big fortified city. Nonetheless, a city like this could be fortified very easily. You would especially want to make sure that your walls on the bottom side of the slope were very strong. The city actually remained a stronghold of Christian faith and a stronghold of Christianity in general, standing against the wave of Muslims that invaded any number of centuries later, and actually never fell because of the Muslims. They were betrayed by the Byzantines, who were jealous of the reputation that the city had for being such an important bastion of Eastern Christianity. And Byzantium, the Christians there, felt like they were the only ones who deserved to be known as a bastion of Christian and Eastern Christianity. So they betrayed them, and it led to their conquest. And didn't really help Byzantium, because in the end, that city fell also in, what was it, 1454? I don't know. I'm not sure of the date. Anyways, but it hung in for many, many years. I think that's, I had a, I think the rest of the symbols and stuff we'll just get to when we get to them. Any questions about background? And you can read that background material. And for those who are watching on the video right now, you are seeing it go by on the screen. But we are going to move to our text. And, okay, and to the messenger, what is the word in the Greek that is translated messenger here? As it was with every letter.
Angel.
Ding, ding, that's right. Okay, angel. And an angel is a messenger. And what are the two ways to understand it here? It is either A, a real angel, or B, the pastor. And the way I tend to go is the pastor, because it doesn't make any sense to me that John has to write a letter to an angel. But that's me, okay? And you could look at your notes earlier, on the earlier letters to get all that sort of information. To the messenger at the Church of Philadelphia, we already talked about that name, okay? Now, here our translation says, the one who is holy, the one who is genuine, the one who is the key of David. But if we look at the Greek there, really, you don't have that word one repeated all that often. Says this, the holy, the genuine or true, the one holding, the one holding the key of David, okay? So the word one actually is only there, is only actually implied, not literally there. But you got to put something there, and, you know, I guess you could say who has or something like that, but all the translations are going to have something like that. And the word translated holy is hagios, and we've already discussed that word when we were in Revelation 2:15, and we did a whole lot of background looking at it. The Holy One is the most common name given to God in the Old Testament. You can find it in places like 2 Kings 19:22, Isaiah 43:3 and 15, and many other places. Jesus, by using the name holy in reference to himself, is clearly indicating that he is God. We know that he is indeed God, the second person of the Trinity. Now, the root meaning of the word holy is separated, and God is holy because he is separated from sin, not because he is separated from us. Jesus was sinless, so he was holy even though he was a man, and clearly not separated from us. So he is uncontaminated, unadulterated by sin. And when we think of God as being holy, and that is being separate, the separate one, we need to be clear that it's not that he's separate from us. In fact, that would be utterly impossible now for Jesus. Okay, so we have holy, okay, the Holy One. This says genuine, and most of your translations will probably say true or something like that. There are two different words that can be translated as true. This one, which is alethinos, and then alethes is the other word that can be translated as true. They both can be translated as true, but the one here, alethinos, is the only one that can be translated as genuine. Alethes is true as like in a true or false quiz. You know, it's you know, this is true and that's false. This alethinos is genuine or real, and it's true in the sense of, like it is used in the Nicene Creed. Very God of very God could also be translated true God of true God, or something along those lines. And if you look at different translations of the Nicene Creed, you will see that they actually use different words there. So he's the real deal, so to speak. But it does not mean that something else is necessarily false. So, for example, here's my, let's see. It is important to note that John, the gospel writer, uses alethinos, not alethes. Remember, uses genuine, not true, as opposed to false, since he does not wish to leave the impression that John the Baptizer's message was false, while Jesus' message was true. You know. So, Jesus is the genuine one. John is the lesser light. John the Baptist is the moon. Jesus is the sun. He reflects the light of Jesus, but he is not the light coming into the world. Okay. Let's see. We've covered that, I think, and this particular translation we're using, God's Word to the Nation, does a pretty darn good job in making those distinctions. Okay, I have opened a door before you that no one can shut. Some people think of this in terms of Jesus when he says, I am the door. Okay, but the trouble here is that Jesus is opening the door. Jesus isn't saying he is the door here. So I think some other things would be better used. And I think the best option is to think of this as Jesus saying he's opening a new mission opportunity for the people. And we can see this in a lot of places in the New Testament. Acts 14:27. When they arrived, they called the church together and told them everything God had done with them and how he had opened the door of faith for the Gentiles. 1 Corinthians 16:9. Because a door has opened wide for me to do effective work, and many are opposing me. 2 Corinthians 2:12. When I went to Troas to tell the good news or gospel of Christ, a door to do the work of the Lord stood wide open for me. And you could see this again in Colossians 4:3 and Matthew 16:15 through 19. So you can see that this idea of an opportunity in front of you fits with the biblical message, the biblical way of using the door image. So when Jesus says that he has opened a door for them, it seems to me that it is a mission opportunity, and it is a sure thing that no one can shut. Now the question is, what is that mission opportunity? People would like to ponder that. And some have suggested that it might be an opportunity to reach out to the Jews. As attractive as that might be, as you read through the New Testament, read through the book of Acts. You can read through the New Testament. I encourage you to do that. But as you read through the book of Acts, where do the mission opportunities tend to start? Where does Paul go first?
Turkey?
But what people group?
Corinthians?
He goes to the Jews first, doesn't he?
Right,
Yeah. He pops into the local
Right.
synagogue. They say, "Oh, we got a visiting rabbi. Will you teach us?" And he says, "Sure. Hey, let's look at the book of Isaiah today." And he starts going on, by his stripes you are healed. Do you want to hear about that? Let's look at this passage. A virgin shall conceive and bear a son. Do you want to hear about that? And he would just start off, okay? He starts and he stays with the Jewish people until the leadership gets sick and tired of him and they boot him out. And then he goes to the Gentiles. That was his practice time and time again. Now, we don't have any proof that that is how things developed in Philadelphia. But barring any evidence that it didn't work that way, you would expect the normal pattern to have manifested itself. At least ways I would. So because of that, I tend to think that they were already doing Jewish outreach. And as a matter of fact, I also feel that when you see this synagogue of Satan, you see it has gone past that point where the Jewish leadership have gotten sick and tired of the Christians and have started to oppose them and started saying, well, wait a minute, that's not the correct way to understand that Old Testament passage. Isaiah is not saying a virgin shall conceive and bear a son. Don't be ridiculous. She's saying a young lady. And then Paul, of course, would respond, what's so miraculous about a young married woman becoming pregnant? What kind of a sign is that? And so they would have their debates going on and so forth. But at any rate, that is one of the reasons that I just don't think that the Jews are a good option for this mission opportunity. Perhaps it's just we have a city that is in the groove for outreach. That's what the city was built for. Why not utilize those channels? And so it seems to me like, The opportunity is going to spread out and see the city and those who are influenced by this city come to faith. And as I said, this city became a shining light of Christianity. It was a free Greek city in a Muslim sea for centuries. You know, that was an opportunity that they seized. If we are understanding it this way, that you have an opportunity before you to share your faith with all these people that your city comes in contact with, then they seized the opportunity. And Philadelphia not only demonstrates that they are a good church now, but they continue to be a good church, you know, and a faithful church. And they actually listened to the admonition of John or Jesus here and followed through. Anyways, that's kind of where I come down on that sort of a thing. Okay. Any questions so far? I should stop every now and then and ask that question. Okay. The one who has the key of David. Now, this is a very interesting thing. The key of David, this is practically a direct quote from the Old Testament. I have it written down here, just where that, a lot of, well, I know it's here because I read it. Okay, Isaiah 22:22. There it is, okay. This is out of a section. Isaiah is referring it to a man named Eliakim, who would replace a man named Shebna in King Hezekiah's court. Eliakim would be a faithful official and a father to the whole kingdom. Luther Polet wrote, Eliakim, with his authority over the doors of the palace of King Hezekiah, was a type of Christ, the Messiah who was to come. This was to be noted especially by the Jews who were brought under the saving influence of the gospel in the loving outreach of the Christians in Philadelphia. The Lord has both the keys of hell and death. That's King James Version. And the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And by the way, King James, when I said King James, that's from chapter 1, verse 18, that description of Jesus. And then Matthew 16:19, you know, is the office of the keys sort of stuff. So, and the passage in Isaiah 22 reads, Then I will set the key of the house of David on his shoulder. When he opens, no one will shut, and when he shuts, no one will open. So what we have here in this image is the key of David, you know, is like the key of salvation. You know, salvation comes from David, and he opens. If Jesus or you receive forgiveness of sins, you go to heaven, right? And if you don't receive that forgiveness of sins, that door is shut, you don't go to heaven, okay? And the only way to heaven is with the key of David, that is through forgiveness of sins. There's no other way in other than that. Okay, so we talked about door. Actually, it just says in the Greek, do you see those little half brackets around the word adore, adore?
Mm-hmm.
That's because the word door is not actually in the Greek there. And they just want you to know, they've put it in so you kind of understand. So it really says, who opens and no one will shut, who shuts and no one opens. Okay. Any questions yet? I know. What do you know that I'm going to say about I know. Because I say it with every letter.
There's so many omniscience of God.
Ding, 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 ding. Okay, yes. Yeah. You know, we see that nobody has to tell Jesus what's going on. Jesus knows. Okay, and so here we got a church that really is not mighty from a worldly point of view, right? But Jesus knows, you know, that they're the ones that are walking the walk, that their faith is genuine. And the church that has a reputation for being alive but is really dead, Jesus knows that church too, you know, and they need to strengthen the embers that are remaining. But this church, it's a good thing that Jesus knows, because what he knows is all good stuff. I know what you are doing. And here he says, see, I have opened a door before you that no one can shut. There, the word door is actually there in the text. And this is why you kind of feel capable of sliding that in up above to make that feel a little bit more even, shall we say. See, I've opened a door. Here we're talking about that mission opportunity before you that no one can shut. This is an opportunity, and it's open. Jesus opens, and it's sometimes, you know, it seems like the moment passes. Okay, you have an opportunity, and you got to strike, or you miss your opportunity. This is not the situation here. Jesus is opening this opportunity, and it's not going to pass. It's going to keep being there, which is why this church was so influential in holding on to the Christian faith for century after century. That you have only a little strength. We already talked about that. This is not the church of the movers and shakers. This is not the mega church. This does not have the waterfalls, and it doesn't have the coffee shops, and it doesn't have the stadium seatings, and it doesn't have the movie screens coming down, and they don't get the latest Christian pop act in. They don't even get last year's Christian pop act in. You know, they have some sort of a dumpy old pastor that everybody goes, oh boy, you know, here's Pastor Jones again. But at least he preaches the gospel, okay? You know? And the people who come, they don't come because they got a glamour guy in the pulpit. They come because they're getting word and sacrament. They only have a little strength, and yet have kept my word. And when we talk about word, of course, we're talking about the revelation of God, that especially in reference to Jesus, that they are into Bible study, you know, like everybody here, and they're not going to get fooled by silly ideas that fool so many people, at least ways they do in our country. Okay. Now, when he says, have not denied my name, we have found that word name before. In fact, didn't we look at it pretty closely with our last letter? Name stands for who you are. So when they say you have not denied my name, what he's saying is you have not denied me. You have not said, well, you know, like the Jezebel of the one letter. You haven't said, well, you know, while I'm with my trade guild, I'll pretend I'm not a Christian so that I can have my job opportunities. When I'm out with my neighbors, I'm not going to talk to them about Jesus because I don't want my neighbors to get all freaked out and wiggy on me or whatever. They have remained faithful. They have not denied his name. Okay. That's into verse 8. Any questions so far? Okay. Look, I will make those of Satan's synagogue. Oh, okay. Before we talk about that, I want to just back up with one last thought, which is why I don't think this mission opportunity is for the Jews. Look at the phrase, the key of David. Look at the idea of, can open and not shut, and shut and not open. When you understand the Old Testament background, it becomes fairly clear, okay? How would they know the Old Testament background? Unless there were a fair number of converted Jews in the congregation already. And those converted Jews go, oh, David, I know who he is. And all those Gentile Christians say, really? Who? And then they tell him, oh, he was our greatest king. And he had a son named Solomon. And that was referring to Eliakim. And have a great time talking about the Old Testament. And the Gentiles who didn't know spit about it, right? They're just eating it up, okay? Well, assuming that is the scenario, and it makes perfect sense to me, then they already have plenty of converted Jews in the congregation, right? So that's another reason I don't think it's a new opportunity for a Jewish mission. They were doing just fine there, okay? But not all the Jews became Christians. And those that did not began to oppose them. And they did it apparently in a fairly sharp way. And when I say sharp, I mean, smart, wise, in a worldly way. They didn't just start saying, stone the guys or burn the guys or destroy their businesses or anything real hateful like we saw in some of the other places. Here, I think what they did is they argued. And they argued from the Old Testament. And so when the Christians would say something like, this promise that God makes to Eve has been fulfilled in Jesus, the rabbi would say, no, it wasn't. What it really means is da-da-da-da-da. And then they would say, this promise that God makes to Abraham is fulfilled in Jesus. And they say, no, it wasn't. It was fulfilled in Isaac. And then again, Jacob. And by the time the Egyptian captivity rolled around, we were already a people as numerous as the stars. And, so every time they would make a point, these people would try to undercut it. And from a purely human point of view, that's just sort of good argumentation, right? And so they probably had any number of probably heated, but not mean-spirited, if you know what I mean, arguments as the two groups that were using the Old Testament argued for the souls of the city. And the Jewish people would have especially been concerned, the Jewish leaders would have especially been concerned for the Jewish people. If you want to convert some Zeus worshiper or whatever, fine, go for it. Knock yourself out. But they didn't want to lose anybody in their congregation. So these people are calling themselves Jews, but here we see now who are the true Jews, the real Israel, in the eyes of God in the New Testament.
The ones who have accepted Jesus.
Jesus, that's right. So these people who say they are Jews, yet are not, but are lying. Now, this is lying in the sense that you're telling something that's not true, but you believe it's true, okay? If I argue that, let us just say that I believe that life sprang by itself from unliving material. That just one day there was this salt water, and then for no particular reason, something changed in the salt water, and now they were microorganisms. And it just came right out of something that was dead. I mean, not living, never living. I may believe that with all my heart. You know, I may argue for it night and day. It doesn't make it true. I am wrong. That, and somebody might look at me and say, you're lying. Today, I would kind of, split hairs and not say, he's not really lying, he's misinformed.
Right.
That's how I would say it. But Jesus, he's a little bit more pointed, isn't he? And the reason I feel that he's more pointed here is because of the danger. This is eternal significance, what's going on here. I mean, are these people going to be pulled away to the law, pulled away from Jesus, and back to servitude to Moses? And so Jesus doesn't do any pull any punches. One other thing, I obviously feel that those who, for some unknown reason, there are a few, who think that there really was a group that had a meeting in a place that they called the Synagogue of Satan. Clearly, I think they were wrong. Okay. So, these are self-deceived people pulling people away from Jesus. Now, Jesus has a warning. Look, I will make them come and bow down at your feet and realize that I have loved you. This is probably the strongest passage, that half verse, for those who think that the new opportunity is for Jews. Okay. But as I say, I think what is going to happen, I do think that this is going to happen. That is to say, they're going to come to faith in Christ. Okay. And historically speaking, I have history on my side because that's what happened. Okay. In fact, the Jews on the Anatolia Peninsula, virtually all of them became Christians. And the Jews that are over there now, they're called Sephardic Jews. They did not get there until 1492. Now, I know you know that Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. Do you know why Isabel sponsored that? It was part of a celebration. They had finally driven the last of the Muslims out of the Iberian Peninsula. They had been occupying it for 600 years, portions of it, and the last was finally driven out. And as part of the celebration, Isabel commissioned Chris Columbus to sail to India. Now, what happens in Spain is that they don't want to have any religious problems at all. They had just had 600 years of religious problems with the Muslims, and they were determined to be Catholic Christians. Uh-oh. Look who else is on our peninsula. These Jewish people. They didn't become Christians. Booed them out. And they did. They said, get out of here. And where did they go? The Ottoman Empire, it was the Ottomans by that point in time, said, well, you come over here, because the Ottomans knew that the Jews were good businessmen and literate. They really did help whatever country they were in, okay? And Jews tended to be pretty darn loyal citizens because they knew having the favor of the government was an important element in keeping them safe, because they're always a minority, okay? Except, in Israel today. But everywhere else, they're a minority. How does a minority remain safe? Cozy up to the government, that's right. So, people talk about the Jewish bankers and the sweetheart deals they had with like the Vatican and European royalty and all that kind of stuff. There was another reason for that, or there are several reasons actually, but one of them was, how do you keep the government ingratiated to you? You bail them out. You know, do you think the government would be nicer to you if you could write them a check and clear out our national debt? Yeah, they'd love you, wouldn't they? Well, the Jews had that one figured out also. So, I mean, people get the wrong idea, I think, sometimes about Jewish people and the motivation for those medieval Jewish people and so forth. They thought that they were all these Machiavelli type people. They just sick and tired of getting kicked out of every place. And if the government is on your side, and how do you get the government on your side? I mean, if you were in their place, what would you think? You know, yeah, that's good. There's another reason they were bankers. It was against canon law for Christians to loan money to other Christians for interest. That was called the sin of usury. So in order for a Christian to get a loan, they had to go to a non-Christian who was then covered by canon law and allowed to charge interest. Well, who was your most convenient non-Christian in the area? So now you know how Jews became bankers. Do you know how Jews became doctors? Christians weren't allowed to cut up and do canon law again. Christians couldn't do that. So who's your local non-Christian that you can go to for medical help if you need an operation or something? You know, it wasn't some sort of these conspiracy people. They have all of these ideas, you know, these sinister people working behind the scenes. But if you look at normal economic forces, it explains a lot of that kind of stuff. So anyways, I have wandered off topic here a bit. But these Jews here, this is before their conversion, they have opposed the Christian faith by offering alternative explanations for the Old Testament. Look, I will make them come and bow down at your feet. That could be understood as worship, but you know, subjugation kind of a thought here, and realize that I have loved you. Now, if you realize that God loves this person or that person or the other person, you are going to say, I've been on the wrong side, right? So what we're talking about here is their conversion. They are going to come to Christ. They are going to subject themselves to Christ's church, and they will then enter into that loving relationship with the true God. Why? Because you have kept my word of patience. Okay? Again, we see faithfulness to the word of God. The key thing that we see in all the churches that seems to get praised is faithfulness to the word of God. And if you're not getting praised for your faithfulness to the word of God, you're going to wind up you have a reputation for being alive, but you are really dead. And we are out of time. Darn. Because you have kept my word, I will also keep you safe in the time of testing. So things aren't going to turn around right away. Instead, there will be a time of testing, but in the end, the church is triumphant. And note the global nature of this. You know, there are times of testing, and there always are going to be times of testing. Okay, I am coming soon. That is to say, without delay. Cling to what you have. Notice again, you know, this is not something new. This is the same gospel, that old story. You know, of Jesus and his love, so that no one takes your crown, Stephanos, the crown of life, the one who wins the victory. We've talked about that with other letters. I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. We talked about that quickly. The idea is permanence, okay? And you're not going to be kicked out. We also have a heaven image there, temple. We see later on the temple comes out of heaven. And he will never leave it again. We already talked about that, permanence. I will write on him the name of my God. You know, you are branded, shall we say. You are God's property, you know. And I will write on him, and the name of the city of my God, which is the New Jerusalem, which is an image for heaven, coming down out of heaven from my God. And we see that again at the end of the book of Revelation. And my new name, the resurrected Christ, you know, okay? Let the one who has an ear listen to what the Spirit says to the churches. Listen up, pay attention. This is very important. Any questions? I told you I would get that church done. Next week, no, wait a second. We're not meeting next week, right? Huh? Next week?
Today's the 12th, so that next week's the 19th.
Yeah, and that's Christmas week, right?
Okay. What's the week that leads into Christmas?
Yes. Well, yeah, you know, for me, you know, as I'm getting, so not next week. I think we have like a 2-week break or something like that.
Okay, so nothing on the 19th or the 26th or January 2nd. So
Yeah,
3 week
okay,
break.
so a 3-week break, and we'll come back, but we'll come back with Laodicea, okay?
Let us see on January 9th.
January 9th. Sounds great.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to turn this thing off. Everybody who's listening, have a blessed day.